un mot simplement pour vous dire pourquoi nous avons ainsi composé la table. Monsieur Burns a présidé la session conclusive de ce symposium, qui était celle qui devait regrouper les conclusions des précédentes sessions et en tirer des conclusions pour la définition des orientations de coopération internationale dans l'avenir. Monsieur Le Sourne était le rapporteur général de ce symposium, et nous avons pensé les uns et les autres que, puisque nous avions la chance d'avoir M. Iglesias avec nous, et puisque les discussions que nous venons d'avoir ont montré, s'il en était besoin, que l'avenir du monde n'est pas un avenir qui se limite aux pays de l'OCDE, et bien loin de là, il était tout à fait justifié qu'il puisse siéger à nos côtés, et je le remercie de l'avoir fait. Je passe maintenant la parole à M. Burns.
Secretary, ladies and gentlemen of the press, I don't really know how to proceed. You've all heard the deliberations of this conference, and therefore each of you knows as much as I do. You've all heard a summary, a very elegant, masterful summary given by Mr. Lesueur, who's at this table, and therefore I see little point in attempting to summarize what has already been done. Now, we can turn to questions immediately, or if you prefer, I can give you some purely personal impressions of this meeting, and therefore I'm going to leave the matter up to you. Do you want to turn to questions? Well, let me just say this. In my experience with the press, every question is a proper question. Answers at times leave something to be desired. And so I take it'll be today. But if you'd like to turn to questions, we can do that at once. And if you'd like to have me speak informally about some of my own impressions or reactions, I'll be glad to do that. What is your preference?
Well, it's difficult to organize. Would suggest that you give your impressions on what has been discussed. Not all the journalists have been in a position to listen, because I think that some of them were not able to spend it here, and we could come to questions after that.
Well, let me begin with a purely personal remark. EEC, and during the 1950s, I attended those meetings as the representative of the American government and found them always thoughtful, stimulating, informative. And I found this meeting, or this symposium, even more stimulating, more refreshing than any meeting of the 1950s that I recall, possibly because of lapse of memory, possibly because of the skillful organization of this meeting, and no doubt because of the variety of talent that the Secretary General succeeded in assembling for this meeting. Now, being a former central banker, I was pleased to hear Professor Cooper suggest that we all might begin thinking about a world central bank, or perhaps we should start with a further evolution of the European monetary system into a European central bank, which would be one way of enhancing the power of influence, effectiveness of international cooperation. OECD, but to think of the future. And I must say one thing that pleased me immensely about this meeting I rather anticipated, and I was wrong, rather anticipated that a good deal would be said about recent controversies between my country on the one hand and the Federal Republic of Germany and Japan on the other, about the need for more stimulative policies in Germany, and this willingness to turn to longer range issues I found very impressive. Now, Mr. Cooper, my American colleague, was not very optimistic about collaboration in the macroeconomic area on any systematic, regular basis in the near future. And I think he's probably right about that. But while I think he's probably right, I hope he is entirely wrong. I think more regular collaboration, more systematic collaboration in the macroeconomic arena, I think is possible. And I would hope that OECD will find a way in working towards that goal, not 25 years from now, but in the relatively near future. Mr. Cooper laid emphasis on inadequacy of economic knowledge as an obstacle to collaboration in macroeconomic area. Of course, he's right about the limitations of economic knowledge. But during my period, during the 1970s, when I was chairman of the Federal Reserve System, I met frequently with my central bank colleagues in Basel, but those were quasi-institutionalized meetings. But we met in addition, several of us, the head of the Bundesbank, the head of the Swiss National Bank. These were the important countries in the 1970s from the viewpoint of exchange markets in particular. And our knowledge was very inadequate. And but we met and we intervened in exchange markets actively. And we did that not because we felt that much could be accomplished to influence the direction of exchange markets. We did it primarily for political reasons. We felt that working together, agreeing to work together, was that the skepticism that he expressed would be shared by most of the participants in the conference that we just had. Now, we had considerable discussion of different approaches to economic policy, and we talked a good deal about fiscal policies and monetary policies and regulatory policies. And I think that I carried away the impression myself that most of us felt that it would be best to leave to individual countries how best to stimulate or restrain economic growth within their own borders. For one country to advise another how to conduct its affairs in detail is a very hazardous undertaking, even a presumptuous undertaking. On the other hand, for government officials who have responsibility for large affairs to discuss the need for a common approach on the part of major countries, either in the way of stimulating the world economy through their own actions or on restraining economic expansion if there is a danger of inflation. One can reach agreement on that, but we should not try to reach agreement on what individual countries should do. That is best left to individual countries. Politics of countries differ, institutions differ, policy instruments and ways of using them differ. A good deal was heard about during our meetings about the importance of building confidence. In my own approach over the years to economic policy making, I have not found it particularly useful to talk about supply-side policies or demand management policies, or to talk about monetarism versus Keynesianism, or even about fiscal policy versus monetary policy. I think the basic question that policy makers ought to ask themselves is not what their own approach to policy making is. They ought to ask themselves, what can we as government officials do to help build confidence in our own countries, confidence on the part of businessmen in the future of their enterprises, confidence on the part of workers in the future of their jobs, confidence on the part of consumers in the future of their families. And this point of view I found rather widespread among the participants of this meeting, and a good deal was said about the 3 C's that are so important to, particularly but not exclusively, to the business community, namely certainty of government policies, credibility of government policies, and also the consistency among government policies. I found that to be a very valuable and repeated accent in the course of our deliberations.